Hello, my name is Kyle Velasco, and I'll be doing, in this video I'll be doing I'll be reviewing my study cycle evaluation sheet. Yeah, sorry, so, let's go over this. First one says, what do you do before class in order to prep for the lecture? So before I go into class, I usually, if I have time, that's a key word, if I have time, I look at I look at the slides ahead of time, and and when I look at ahead of time, I occasionally will take some of the key concepts that they have, and I will reconnect it back to previous materials that we have done, and just build off my knowledge off of that. I regularly attend each of my class sessions, because they don't take attendance, but they do take in-class quizzes, so yeah, I attend classes partially for that, but I do prefer listening in to a lecture, because it does provide extra information, and if all else fails, I always have another person by me to, I can ask questions, and or I could ask my teacher or TA if I'm not understanding the content. And as I previously said, how do you participate during the class session? I mean, yes, as I previously said, there is some in-class quizzes I do have to, in-class quizzes where I would have to write a piece of paper and answer, but also in the class, my professor or instructor will also bring up a special slide, where he's asking a question, a multiple choice kind of question, answering with 1, 2, 3, or 4 with fingers, and we answer the question by raising our fingers to for a multiple choice, and if we get it right, the text turns red, and so depending on what we do. How do you review the course content after class? Sad to say is I don't usually review content after class. The only time I actually review the content is before a test, and granted, I think right now I'm realizing it's a terrible idea, and so but aside from that, if I do review some of the course content for the class, after the class, much previously, I would try to connect some of the content to the previous information that we had, and if not, I would go over, when it comes to my notes, which I take to heart more or less, is the Cornell notes, and I usually, in the left-hand column of the Cornell notes, I write key concepts, things to study for, and what to pay attention for. And so I do go over that and connect it back to the notes. How would you define studying? So I would define studying as taking a part of your time to go over a topic for the class. Taking part of your time to expand and connect previous concepts in order to gain a better grasp and understanding on the topic, and for me, The next question is asking what I do to study for the course. Much like my math class, how I study for chem is I occasionally ask my family, my sister, or some of my friends, who are also taking chem, so it's easier. But I ask them questions and that I don't understand. If not, questions that I do not understand, and we bounce off the information, asking whether if this is right, whether this is wrong. Guessing, but like going through a second check, more or less, to make sure the content's correct and that that both of us are learning in the process. How do I know if my study habits are effective for the course? I mean, I'm also connecting this Chem 141 to my 143, which is the lab, which is also tied with the 141, and so it does really help me in my lab portion. And aside from that, when it comes to a lecture, going over, when I go to my the study groups for my lecture with my little clique in Chem 141, we do go over some of the homework and ask questions, and much like how I previously described, we bounce off the information just to make sure that they're learning and that I'm learning in the process. And how do I know if I truly understand the course material? I mean, when I truly would understand the course material when I'm able to properly teach my my peers on what we're learning. And previously, for example, I decided to I had a problem that required me to balance an equation, a chemical equation, sorry. And I was asking my family, and including my sister, how they would solve it, and I showed them my process of solving the equation through linear equation. Balancing the chemical process bond, the chemical process, and they would use the guess and check method that they've been taught, and which I was also taught, but I'm not a big fan of. And sorry, getting back on topic. When it came to that, I decided to show them the method that I learned in class, which was, instead of the guess and check method, was to set all the elements into linear equations and solve for the x values, or the variables. And it was really easy, and it was fun to bounce off these kind of information. But yeah, that's it. It's the end of the questions, I think. Bye.